Let's explore nonviolence versus self-defense, the ultimate moral conundrum revealed. This reminds me very much of the lessons one can learn from reading the Tao Te Ching. We learned that there are many applications of yin and yang, and that the philosophical applications are much different than perhaps the feng shui applications. Because in the philosophical applications, as voiced by Lao Tzu himself, one is always instructed to, although one is instructed to recognize both yang and yin, one is always taught to avoid yang and apply yin within the context of the Tao Te Ching. And a wonderful example of this would be to forsake rigidity and choose flexibility. This was explored very well in the first season of the television series Angel, written and produced by Joss Whedon. And in it, the major character says, "I don't really feel that I should be involved." And then a lesser character said, "Oh, yes, these men, women, and children should die for your ethics." And that is a common conundrum. Let's continue. Another reflection of yin and yang is to avoid being controlling and instead choose to be laid back. But that is not easy to do, especially for me. And so I was drawn to study meditation, various forms of meditation, to learn how to become laid back. Not to force being laid back, because that's being controlling, but to allow being laid back to become spontaneous. And this brings us to the dichotomy between contrivance versus centered spontaneity. So how does one cultivate this centered spontaneity? And the answer is meditate. But what does it mean to meditate? Here in the West, we've got a lot of confusions. We have the the translator's dilemma, because translators rely on dictionaries, but they forget dictionaries are not set in stone. They're made of men who are just as and women who are just as flawed as they are, and who have many influences preying upon them. And they forget to allow the context of the teachings to determine the definition of the words. That's a really dodgy thing. Far too often translators are academics and not yogis, which is a fancy way of saying they spend more time studying and thinking than applying the teachings and noticing the results, testing the assumptions of previous translators in the crucible, the laboratory of their own body and mind. I've said all that to say this: concentration is not mindfulness. But I will tell you this: every time we breathe in, we gain automatic access to our sympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to simply perceive, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. We could notice sight, sound, sensations, flavor, scents, and the like. We could notice emotions, intentions, reasoning, recollection, and imagination. We could notice the external, the internal, the physical, the mental, the pleasurable, the painful, the interesting, the boring, the glorious, and the grotesque. What do we do with all this shit that we notice? Simple. We meditate upon it. But how do we do that? Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are automatically accessing our parasympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to both physically relax as well as mentally release during each exhalation. Letting go is not some fancy way of saying repress or throw away. It means that in the face of whatever we experience, whether it pulls at us or pushes at us or makes us feel all manner of emotion, we consciously, physically relax, and as a consequence, tend to mentally release. That is not only the secret of coping with the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, but as a delicious byproduct, it creates centered spontaneity. But what is the test of centered spontaneity? And this is kind of silly. The moment we stop ourselves and wonder, am I in centered spontaneity? No, we're not. Centered spontaneity is the flow state. It is. So let's take a deeper look at this. Let us pretend there is a continuum. And on one end we have contrivance, when we are controlling. And on the other hand we have complete scatteredness, like a child spinning around in the living room after eating far too much chocolate. In the middle, we have another form of spontaneity that is centered in love. When our choices and our utterances and our deeds flow upon this stream of centered spontaneity, our life works well. Trolls are still going to troll, fools are still going to fool, but we are much more resilient. We are much more at peace with the world and our knee-jerk reactions to the world. We are not perfect, but our learning curve grows exponentially, predicated that once we make a mistake, we don't return to being the two extremes of being scattered or contrivance, but persist with centered spontaneity, rooted also, remember, in mindfulness is vulnerability, and we will evolve at rocket sled speed. Let's meditate. But before we do, let's spend about a minute on housekeeping. Wrong button. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the patronage of viewers just like you. If you love Star Wars and you wish to meditate as transformatively as Obi-Wan Kenobi upon the toasty sands of Tatooine under the guidance of Qui-Gon Jinn, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Good news! If at any point during this morning's live stream you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them to your life, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. Unless, of course, you're watching on your smartphone, then it'll be on the bottom part of the screen. And one of the first things you can do is type in there and let me know where you're watching this live stream from. You don't have to give me your address, just, city, state, country, that type of thing. It's not mandatory, it's just fun. And now, I tap the magical button 9, and through the magic of the internet, I take us to our practice text. Walking in the footsteps of Vajrasattva. Let us begin by exercising the neural pathways responsible for empathy and enthusiasm. Please chant with me. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. So, when we practice our mantra meditation, it's going to rely heavily on the on similes and metaphors. And a wonderful way of organizing those similes and metaphors is through the iconography of an archetype of enlightened purity. Let's chant that right now. In ordinary forms above the head of each being is a white lotus with a moon's heat in its fold. From a suitable whom above this arises the lames doge sampayamyam. So a lot of people have difficulty, if they're new to Tibetan iconography or Indian iconography, they may have a little bit of difficulty making sense of the image. So I'll try to simplify it. Please bear with me while I do just that. Let's see, I'm looking for Kunto Zangpa, which really sounds like a cuss word. Let's see, do I have... Let's try this. Well, this is the best I can do. And you might ask, why do we sometimes visualize the archetypes of enlightenment as sitting in a tantric union? Is it because we're pervy? Maybe. But it also symbolizes the entirety of the spiritual path. The nudity reminds us of vulnerability, which is a prerequisite to mindfulness. Their translucence reminds us of the wisdom of letting go. Their beauty reminds us of the love that is a natural byproduct of mindfulness and meditation. The abandon with which she sports reminds us of spontaneity, reminds us of the play of mind. The centeredness with which he sits reminds us of relaxing into the nature of mind. Let's continue. Why translucent the perfect body of complete enjoyment, holding a Vajrapad and embracing his consort, holding a chopper and skull cup. So because there is a color reference, I'm going to add in a line drawing. So let's see which one works best. Let's try this one. Okay, let's continue. I'd like to practice with you right now a 4 lines in coordination with geriatric step back squat thrust for aging fitness freaks. This is optional, but I really enjoy doing it. In discipleship, we bow to Gaurav Dorje's teacher, the peaceful Vajrasattva, that all beings we may free. In discipleship, we bow to Gaurav Dorje's teacher, the peaceful Vajrasattva, that all beings we may free. In discipleship, we bow to Gaurav Dorje's teacher, the peaceful Vajrasattva, that all beings we make free. And that's delightfully invigorating, is it not? Whew. What happens if I hit paste? Okay. Let's continue. May the bodies of doges and Payam Yami midlines. May the light dissipate our experiences of jealousies, karmically impure appearances, and Prad's misunderstandings. May the outer world become as fortunate as the real or imagined pure land of bliss. With each inhalation, may the body, speech, and mind of beings become as healthy, peaceful, and joyful as the body, speech, and mind of the archetype diamond mind. So diamond mind is the English way of translating Vajrasattva, or which can be translated into Tibetan as Dorje Sampa. With each exhalation, may appearances, sensations, sounds, and cognitions feel as non-graspable as if they were empty by nature. So, we now have the basic outline of our mantra meditation. The first half is going to be love-oriented. The second half is going to be letting go-oriented. The fancy pants name for this would be Tokal's loving leapfrog over our competitive tendencies. Okay, let's continue. May all minds of all beings now be as joyful and wise as a Buddha's mind, symbolized by a one-syllable mantra known as a seed bija or tea clay drop. May all relationships of all beings now be as peaceful and harmonious as the Buddha's communication symbolized by the six-syllable mantra. So during this chant we have a simile, and during the mantra meditation we convert it to a metaphor. Vajrasattva. May all bodies of all beings know and share the beautiful health depicted in Buddhist thought, of the blissful body of a yidam of Lord Nok type of enlightenment. May all circumstances of all beings now be as safe and fortunate as a Buddhist real or imagined paradise, pure land of Vati. While meditating upon the meaning of this, recite the mantra as much as you can. We now come to the second half of our mantra meditation, where we shift gears from love to letting go. This is also known as Tokal's insightful leapfrog over our clinging tendencies. Another name for this would be Tantra Mahamudra. But first, let's review what we mean by the idea of emptiness. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we notice during our previous inhalation could feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a beautiful cloudless morn, which, although compelling to the eye, is not graspable to the hand. How is it that as we inhale our circumstances could appear quite vivid, yet as we relax into our exhalation they could feel as non-graspable as a paradise or vati of light? How is it? Oopsie. How is it that as we inhale our bodies could feel quite sensual, yet as we relax into our exhalation they could feel as non-graspable as an octopoium of light? Whoa. And of course, these questions are rhetorical. How is it that as we inhale the interpersonal experience of communication could be quite resounding, yet as we relax into our exhalation it could feel as non-graspable as a mantra of light? How is it that as we inhale we could perceive our mind's functions quite clearly? Now, what functions are these? This would be the functions we referred to in the lesson, functions such as perceiving sight, sound, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, such as emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining. How is it that as we inhale we could perceive our mind's functions quite clearly, yet as we relax into our exhalation they could feel as non-graspable as a eternal hum of light? Let's see. Let's get fancy with this. And there we go. Om Vajrasattva, Om Vajrasattva. Oopsie. Vajrasattva, Om Vajrasattva, Om Vajrasattva, Om Vajrasattva. Om Vajrasattva, Om Vajrasattva, Om Vajrasattva, Om Vajrasattva. Om Vajrasattva, Om Vajrasattva, Om Vajrasattva, Om Vajrasattva. Om Vajrasattva, Om Vajrasattva, Om Vajrasattva, Om Vajrasattva. At the end, without conceptualizing the three spheres of actor, action, and recipient, rest evenly in your own non-graspable nature. But how do we do that? Simple. We practice mindfulness during our inhalation, not by striving to actively concentrate, but by merely perceiving vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. We meditate during our exhalation simply by allowing our bodies to naturally relax, for that relaxation to serve as a carrier wave for our minds to release. Therefore, during each inhalation, we silently, I guess I should mention that as we relax into our exhalation, whatever we perceive during our inhalation can now feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. Therefore, during each inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, and during each exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the noun void, which of course serves as a metaphor of non-graspability. Another useful lesson to be had from the artwork of Conundrum is this. The Conundrum, the female, reminds us of a white, fluffy cumulus cloud, which is very much like the mind's activity of perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. The man's color reminds us of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful morn. And this reminds us of, after perceiving mind's play during an inhalation, to relax into mind's non-graspable nature during our exhalation, and nature which is as non-graspable as the infinite azure sky. Or should I say, for our physicists here, the illusion of an infinite sky. And now together, let's sit in silence and meditate. Whoops, that's weird. Okay. Welcome to this morning's group meditation. If at any point you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them to your life, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. Unless you're watching on your smartphone, then it'll be in the bottom part of your screen. Welcome to this morning's group meditation. If at any point you have any questions about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. Unless you're watching on a smartphone, then it'll be right below. Now, I open my eyes and check for questions approximately once every 8 minutes or so. Whoa. Welcome to our early morning's guided meditation, or group meditation. If at any point you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window, either on the right-hand side of the screen or below the screen, depending on which device you're using. I check for questions approximately once every 8 minutes, so just hold tight. But since you got me live, let's explore this delicious metaphor. As we breathe in, thanks to our sympathetic nervous system, we are wired to notice mind's perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. This takes place vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Every time we exhale, oh yes, by the way, and these things that we perceive, the play of mind is very much like a cloud. It seems to come from nowhere. It only lasts for so long, and then it seems to go away of its own. I've never met someone who successfully pushed a cloud away. Every time we exhale, we inadvertently and automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to both physically relax and mentally release, as if that which was perceived during the previous inhalation was as non-graspable as the sky, which is tantalizing to the eye but intangible to the fingers. So in short, as we breathe in, we perceive the play of mind. As we breathe out, we relax into the nature of mind, the sky-like nature of mind. This can be condensed even further to silently and mentally reciting cloud as we breathe in, and silently and mentally reciting sky as we breathe out. Let us seal our meditation with a chant. May my body and others' bodies be as healthy as the body of Sattva. May all sounds be as loving as this acceptable melody. And may all mental activity be like the domain of great wisdom. Okay, let's try that again. May all sounds be as loving as this acceptable melody. And may all mental activity feel as non-graspable as the domain of great wisdom. By the virtue of this practice, may I quickly master Dorje Sampa's enlightenment. Then establish in the state the totality of beings. By the merit of this meditation and recitation, may I earn those related to me through intention. As soon as, un momento, s'il vous plaît. Un momento, por favor. Copy. As soon as we leave our impure bodies, let's try this again. By the merit of this meditation and recitation, may I and those related to me through intention. Good grief, let's see. By the merit of this meditation and recitation, may I and those connected to me through intention, as soon as we leave our impure bodies, be miraculously born in Sukhavati, immediately traverse the 10 bodhisattva bhumis, and through emanations benefit all beings in the 10 directions. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could share it with a friend. You could type something in the comment area below. You could even help support this channel on Patreon. In approximately 2 1/3 hours, I would very much like to return to the today's mid-morning lesson and meditation. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.